tuberculosis. Never heard of it. No, they called it the yellow fever. Yellow fever. We had no idea where it came from. All we knew was someone would turn yellow. They'd be overwhelmed with fits and convulsions and pass away within 5 days.
Ooh.
In that city of 40,000 souls, 5,000 died from the yellow fever in only 3 months. In fact, the government had to go into quarantine. Our government moved several miles to the northwest to the little village of Germantown, and we all wrapped up to protect ourselves, protect others. We almost lost our Secretary of the Treasury. He came down with yellow fever, but because he had it when he was growing up in the Indies, he survived. But then, of course, that's been many, many years ago, so I doubt you remember who our Secretary of the Treasury was at the time, do you?
Hamilton.
We don't need to hear the name again. Yes, well, now, citizens, I want you to know that over these last several years, there have been more and more coming to visit our Monticello than I've known my entire life. But now, I want to make a correction. Many people think I was born and grew up here. I was not. I was born and grew up about 2 miles to the northeast on a farm that my father cleared out of the wilderness. He was quite the frontiersman. I'm considered a tall man, 6 feet, nearly 3 inches. I weigh 190 pounds. My father, Colonel Peter Jefferson, stood 6 feet and 5 inches, and he weighed upwards of 240 pounds. A man of exceptional physical capacity. Don't forget it. Our government is the servant of the people, not the master. It governs through your consent and your consent alone, freely given and freely renewed. Yes, I'm sharing that with many. So many coming up here, they're asking me about what it was like as we formed this remarkable nation. I call it the world's best hope. And, well, remember, too, in another 6 years, we're going to witness quite the anniversary. 6 years from this year of 20. It is year 20, is it not?
Yes, sir.
1820. Well, I've never known another 20. I wasn't here in 1720. I'm not going to live to see 1920. So what year will it be in 6 years? 1826. Do you know what that means? 50 years. 50 years since the birth of our nation. I declare 50 years since our Declaration of American Independence. Is it not remarkable we have lasted so long? The citizens, many thought we would not. Our old enemy, England, is waiting for our demise every day. She does not believe that the increasing diversity of our population is going to be able to hold securely the reins of self-government. She thinks some of us are going to get fed up and want to fall back on monarchy, royalty, nobility, aristocracy, landed gentry, special privilege. Well, citizens, remember, that's why we fought the war. Remember, that's why we fought the war. That's why we shed our blood. Wasn't easy. Didn't happen overnight. It took a long time to finally create a government of, by, and for
The people.
Thank heaven you're not forgotten. Well, we cannot forget this. We cannot hazard to forget this. We have to continue to pass these founding principles on, particularly to generations unborn. Remind ourselves that we are the first nation in the history of man founded upon principle, not upon monarchy, not upon nobility and aristocracy and landed gentry. Principles we work at every successive generation towards more equal and exact justice, and that's applicable to everyone. And to continue to form a more perfect
Union.
Oh, there we are. Very good. Well, remember, the Romans said man is always one generation removed from barbarism. That's all it takes, one generation to forget. And then you fall backward. And will you ever be able to make it up again for the next generation? So, again, I beg your pardon, you didn't ask me for these comments, but this is what we've been talking about when so many come to visit. So you've been kind to allow me the floor. So for the remaining time, the floor is yours. Anything that's been on your mind for these last 200 years, I'm happy to talk. There's the work that needs to be done. These are, I hope, not taken to be excuses. I hope they may be looked upon as a clear idea a better understanding and a context in this year of 18 and 20. Yes, ma'am.
Complicated question, perhaps. Did you wish for that when you were signing the Declaration of Independence?
Of course, we all wish for that, ma'am.
Yes.
Remember, Great Britain referred to us here as a mongrel population of red-breeched radical revolutionaries in the hinterlands of North America. But we achieved something that England never ever thought would happen. It was the very first instance that we could do something about those conditions into which we were born. Remember, none of this happened overnight. It didn't begin when I was born, or my parents, or my grandparents. This has been going on and on. And so never forget what we were able to achieve before the war began, before I wrote the Declaration. Anyone know what I'm referring to?
All men are created equal.
Well, that had already been argued and debated and already had become quite the... In fact, it first appeared in the ancient Roman Code of Law, the Justinian Code, 6th century. Justinian I, the foundation of Roman law, Justinian Code, everyone is born free. Everyone comes into this world with a right to their own person, may move wherever they choose to better their condition. Now, that was forgotten through the ages of the darkest ignorance. Had it not been for many a monk, many a clerk in their dark cells to the flick of a candlelight to transcribe that wisdom of the ancient earl, world citizens, the past was not less intelligent than we are today. And remember, no one ever lives in the past. So this was all then able to be disseminated with that precious invention of the modern world, the printing press. And people could then begin to read for themselves. And what happens when you begin to read for yourself? You begin to think for yourself. You think any European monarch or European ecclesiastic wanted their subjects or their congregations to learn to read for themselves and think for themselves? Mercy, no. Particularly to read about a new world where they might become master of their own destiny. So this is becoming the more and more universal. And then we achieve something. Citizens, we brought 13 individual nations together. How did we do that? How did we do that? Each one of those former colonies were distant, disparate, one from the other. The degree of religious opinion in one versus a vast difference in the other. The degree of freeholders living in one versus the greater number of tenants living upon the freeholdings in the other. And remember, there was slavery in every single one of them. To some a greater degree, to others less so. But we brought it all together through a founding principle we can never, ever forget.
Compromise for the common
Freedom.
good.
There, you just heard it. Say it loud, sir.
Compromise for the common good.
Compromise. Give that gentleman a round of applause. Compromise. That's how we did it, citizens. Compromise. Not only for the common safety and the common defense, most importantly, the common good. And that's how we have to continue to work upon these subjects. And what we know is a default to what we preach. And so that's why I have made my statements once more that I have written many, many times. It doesn't excuse me. But it doesn't excuse us, because in this year of 18 and 20, well, if I say so, who shouldn't? We're witnessing another presidential election, are we not? And yet, lamentably, in our nation now, 9.5 million souls, 9.5 million people. We have 23 states. We're going to have a 24th next year when the territory of Missouri enters. Only 6% of our population is the franchise. So let me just say, who here right now has no vote, no voice this year?
50%.
No, who here doesn't have a vote or a voice?
Women.
Women, no vote, no voice. Who else?
Slaves.
Not only the slave, anyone of color. Anyone of color. Mulattoes, natives of this land, those of a particular hue from a foreign land who have every right to come here and better their condition, no vote, no voice. Others?
Non-property owners.
A white male, 21 years of age or older, who does not hold property, no vote, no voice. Others? A white male, 21 years of age or older, who holds property but is mortgaged. Well, it's not your property. It belongs to your creditor. And your creditor may be a wealthy woman of color. A free woman of of color, no matter her wealth, she has no vote, no voice. So the 6% of our population who is voting this year is the white male freeholder, 21 years of age or older. So this subject that we're all discussing is in their hands. I ought to know. And it's protected by our Constitution and our Supreme Court. So I ask you, will this still be the franchise mid-century, the 1850s, the 1860s? I'm not going to live to see it. But there's your work. Citizens, I thank you for this opportunity. We all here together. I'm happy to welcome anyone who would care to have a portrait painted up on the lawn, but most importantly, I welcome you all to return, if only to remember when we were masked. This is your history. Imagine what you'll be able to tell the future about what we are living right now, and imagine how much you know that I have no idea about. Do you know I still, in this year, 1820, 27 years later, our nation still does not know where yellow fever comes from. I still do not know what took Mrs. Jefferson or 5 of our 6 children. And the reason you all know so much about this is because of another founding principle, and I hope you never forget it. It's written right in our Constitution as one of the duties of the legislative body. We're the first nation in the history of man to insert this in our system of government and our laws. Anyone know what I'm referring to?
Speech?
The pursuit of science. It's right there. As you know, I've written, I will follow science wherever it should lead us, because I know that man and science are on a continual advance. That's why I enjoy so much more the dreams of our future than perhaps the history of our past. I remain your humble and obedient servant, Thomas Jefferson. Godspeed.